Welcome back everyone to the Blender Creator course, Stylized 3D Models, and we wanted to call it actually a Blender Creator course because we wanted to show you the whole process so that you can go away once you've done this course and create your own models simply and easily, and they will get better in time. But starting with this part and starting with the things that I've actually showed you is really going to make sure that you become, something from a beginner to a professional in a really, really fast way. All right, so let's look at what we've actually got in here. So let's go to our grass first. Now, our grass, if I click on one of these, you can see these are very, very simple. If I go into this piece of grass here, you can see that these are made very, very simply, simple mesh. And as we bring these in, I'm actually going to show you how to create one or two of these, just so you have an idea of how to create them. But it's basically a very, very simple, flat 2D geometry that's been bent round and then a texture placed over the top of it. So we've got a lot of grass there to work with, and you can pretty much, get grass free from a lot of places on the internet. So I recommend learning, first of all, how to create your own grass, and then getting some free ones and building up kind of a database of all different types of grass that you can bring in to create when you're creating your own models. All right, next of all, what we've got is the actual textures. Now, when we bring these textures in, we're quickly going to have a look at what's different about them. I'm going to also show you how to, first of all, bring textures in two ways. The first way will be with the asset manager, but I'm also going to show you, just in case you haven't got the asset manager, how to create your own textures as well. Now, the good thing about this is we're going to put these into the asset manager, and then in our own project that we're going to create the building on, you'll just be able to drag and drop these in. Now, if we go into the first texture, you will see as well, the good thing is that if I press dot, just the dot button, just to go to this, if I actually put this onto our shading option, you'll see this is our wall. You'll also see that not only have we brought all these textures in, but we've actually come in and messed around with each of these. Now, when I bring textures in, as we get further in the course, I'm also going to talk about what these actual parts are actually doing over the top of the basic textures that we've brought in. You can see that pretty much on all of these, maybe not this one, let's go to this one, that we do have some changes in how the shader is put together, because it's important that not only do you learn how to bring shaders in, how to create shaders, but also how to change shaders. So we can see that these wood, for instance, they're actually the same texture maps, but we've actually changed how the actual shader is working. We can also see, like something with emission, we actually do really want to have control over, how the light is being emitted, or how dark are the dark patches. Because honestly, when you bring in a texture to Blender, it's nearly always wants a little bit of a change. For instance, this one is the window, but without the emission, so we need to make sure that this looks right, and you can see that this is the setup for this actual shader. So as I say, as we move on further into the course, we will be not only bringing the shaders in, but we'll be quickly going through and seeing how we put the shader together. That leads us on to the actual geometry nodes. It will be exactly the same thing. Now, at the moment, you can see at the top over here, there's already an option for geometry nodes. So if we click on geometry nodes, and let's go into something like the chain. Now, these geometry nodes, I have pretty much created from scratch. I've borrowed a lot of ideas from people out there who are way better than I am at creating geometry nodes, and I've kind of looked at their tutorials or looked at their geometry node builds and created my own things from them. Sometimes where geometry nodes and people are giving them away for free, I will take that and add in my own textures, materials, or own parts to the geometry node as well. So it's important that we'll go through some of the more basic geometry nodes. So you can see, like, this chain is a pretty much basic geometry node. You're going to learn how to use them, and what's better than all of that is the fact that you're going to have a resource pack that you'll be able to use time and time again, because these geometry nodes actually are really, really handy to have. I mean, pretty much most of the models, whether it's a wizard's tower, whether it's a stylized library building, you'll be able to use these geometry nodes time and time again from now on, because you've got this download pack. I will show you as well how you put them into Asset Manager, so when you're creating your own projects, you can just bring in this geometry node, and then it's easy for you and set up. But I do think that it's also important that you understand how to use these just so you can change them on the fly to suit what you need. But this then gives you the basics for what you're trying to do. So we can see, first of all, that we do have a chain, we have a roof, which is a very, very complex geometry node. So we'll just go through a very brief part of that. And then we have something a little bit more simple like planks of wood. We'll also be going through on the right hand side what we can actually do with these, because whenever I'm creating a geometry node, I always make sure that I have loads of group inputs, and that then enables you to change it without actually going into the geometry node, which is kind of annoying. So whenever you're creating these things, make sure you've got a lot of options over on the right hand side, so you haven't got to go in and change too much. We've also then got flowers. Another geometry node is ivy, and we've got these flowers which are individual flowers, and then on top of that, finally, we've also got this bunch of flowers where you can put them in hanging baskets or blocks of wood where you can put loads of flowers in. All right, so pretty much in this you have got everything that you're going to need. So let me just press tab. Let me just make sure that's on. So what we're now going to do is I'm going to play a short video on the asset manager. And then from there, I'm going to actually put these in an asset manager before we actually start our grey box. I know it might seem a bit weird that we're doing that first, but trust me, it's going to make it much easier in the long run once you've got your blend file set up. Because from there, you can actually set that blend file up then to be used in the future with the asset manager. All right, everyone, so I'm going to play that now. Please watch it. Even if you're familiar with the asset manager, please watch it so that you'll be able to follow along when you actually come back. All right, everyone, so I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye. Welcome, everyone, to the short introduction on the asset manager within Blender. Now, before we get started, let's take a quick look at what we're actually trying to achieve here. So if you see on the top left-hand side here, I have actually one called Assets, which we're actually going to create. If we actually click on that, you'll see it opens up a new window, and within that window, we have Assets on the left-hand side grouped together. Not only do we have assets, we also have actually a material library as well. So we're going to learn actually how to actually put these into this group and how Blender can actually find them. But before we do that, let me just show you how they actually work. So within my stylized assets, I have all of these assets which are from multiple courses, and I can simply drag and drop my asset actually into place. Now the asset doesn't just come in with the actual model, it also comes in, if I click on my materials tab, with the actual materials. So I can bring any asset in, and they should come in nice and flat for you into any scene that you want to create. Now with the actual materials, if I actually just bring in a cube, so I'm just going to bring in a cube, I'm going to move it over to the left hand side, and I'm going to come over to my stylized materials, and I'm simply going to drag and drop onto my actual cube, and there you go. You can see this one is glass. I've only got our materials at the moment, so you won't actually see through it or anything like that, but you can see that we can just drag and drop materials onto our actual cube and things like that. You can see that this one is wood, and you can see how easy it is just to drag and drop them on. Now, some of them, depending on how complex they are going to take a little bit longer actually to place on your cube. But apart from that, they work really, really well. Now, enough of all that. Let's go back now to a brand new Blender file, and I'll show you exactly how we're going to set this up. So here we are in our Blender actual default view, and what I'm going to do is I'm first of all going to come up to the right hand side. I'm going to come across, and you'll notice if I come across the general, we have one that says asset. Now, some of you might not actually have asset, and if you haven't got asset, just click on something like modeling. We'll click on modeling, and you'll notice now that we've got another one called modeling.001, and the reason is, of course, because we already have one called modeling. Now, if I come and left click, so double left click on here, let's call this asset, like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, and I'm going to pre-order this to the actual front. So we now have asset, layout, and modeling. Now, at the moment, this is just a copy of my modeling, and I don't really want that. So what I want to do is I want to come down to the left-hand side. And as I come to this corner, you'll see this little kind of cursor appear. And if I left click and drag, so from the corner, left click and drag up, you'll now have actual two windows. Now what you want to do is you want to come over to where this actual icon is here, left click it, and over on the right hand side you'll have one that says Asset Browser. And there we go. So now we actually have our asset browser, and now you can click on this anytime that you want. Now it's important for this to actually work that first of all I'm going to press tab just to get out of my edit view. If I come over to file and I come down, and what I want to do is I want to come to defaults and I want to save it as a startup file. But you don't probably want it here, like looking here in your assets when you first open up Blender. So if you don't want that, just come to modeling, and then what you're going to do is you're going to go to file, default, save startup file. And now every time you load up Blender, you're also going to have this asset manager in place. Now, how do we make groups? So the way we make new groups is you can see here we can change this from all. You can see it's on current file, and you can see there's also an unassigned button. Now it's important that we keep that unassigned button there because many times I've created assets and I can't find them, and of course they'll be in the unassigned. Now let's create a new group. So if we create one called material, or materials, like so, and then we know we can place all of our materials in this one. So it's just a little plus to create a subgroup under all. If you want to subgroup to under materials, you just click the plus on the actual materials, and then it'll create a subgroup under this actual materials, as you can see there. All right, you can see there's also a little star there. That just means that we need to save this blend file out. So just save your blend file out if you actually want to save out these materials once you've actually got them in place. Now, how does Blender know where to actually look for these assets? Well, what you need to do is you need to come up to Edit, go down to Preferences, and then what you need to do is you can see over here where it says User Library. This is where Blender needs to actually know where to actually look. So you can see mine at the moment. I've created a desktop icon that's called Blender Assets, and that's where I'm actually telling Blender to actually go and look. Now, the thing is, any blend file that you create, just create a copy of it and actually put it into this new desktop blend file. It doesn't have to be in your desktop, but it needs to all be in the same file to actually work. Once you've actually done that, then we can close that down or save preferences. You can also do it that way. Close it down, and now you'll see if I come down to user library, you will have a problem here that we haven't actually got anything in there. So if we go to open preferences, and now we click on this, and now I'm going to go to my desktop, and now I'm going to find my Blender asset library, which is this one here. And you can see I've got all of these blend files in there. If I click accept now, close that down, and now when I come and actually click on my catalog, you can see that I've got all of these actual materials and things in place. This is why it's really important that you actually make sure that you actually put in your blend files into that directory. Now, the next thing we need to discuss is how to actually create our actual assets. So for instance, let's create a material. So if I come over to the right hand side, I'm just going to create a cube material like so. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a base color. So let's just change the base color to a red. Let's put it on material so we can see it. And there we go. We've got our cube material. Now what I want to do is I want to right click. I want to come down and mark as asset. And you'll notice now that it's got these kind of books stacked together. And that basically means that this has been saved out now as an actual material. Now, of course, this blend file hasn't been saved out into my assets. So all I need to do now is go to File, Save As, and then I'm going to go to my desktop and come to my Blender asset library, which is this one. And now I need to save this out as a blend file within here. Then what Blender will do is it will pick up that this is a blend file within that actual file. So this one here. And then you'll actually have access to this material. Now, the next thing you need to do is you need to actually, let's save a cube out, for instance, instead of an actual material, let's save out an object. So all you do is you right click, come down to mark as asset. And again, you'll see now that we've got those three actual stacked books. And now because you have actually saved this blend file out into your asset library, every single time now that we open Blender, so if I close this down and reopen Blender, you'll see you can go to your assets. And now we can see that we can go to our user library, open preferences, and let's find our actual Blender asset library, click accept, close that down, and there we go. You can see I've got all of my assets in. You can even see the ones that aren't actually assigned, but you can see I've got all of these assets in place already. Now, just before we finish up, a couple of things to remember. First of all, when you go to edit and preferences, you will see that this is normally red. You just have to name it something so it's not actually red, and then you won't have any problems with it. Second thing is that once you've taken the time to actually create all of your assets and all of the materials and things like that by right-clicking them and mark as an asset, just remember to save that file out in the actual place where you save them out. So for me, it's my Blender asset library. If you don't save out a separate version of Blender in there and you end up overwriting it, then you will lose all of those assets, of course. Basically, it's a blend file just with all of your assets in there. That's all that should be in there. All right, everyone. So I hope you enjoyed that. A few troubleshooting problems at the end as well. And as they say, on with the show.